Good evening and welcome to Devotions on this Wednesday evening. So good to have you here. I wanted to pick up a little bit on some of what we were talking about yesterday evening. And I went back to Madeleine L'Engle. Some of you may know Madeleine L'Engle. She was a writer, a thinker, a theologian, and known mostly for A Wrinkle in Time and that series of novels. But so I went back to her book, A Stone for a Pillow, which she follows the commentary on life in the light of Jacob's journey with his stone for a pillow. And she was talking about the stars. So I want to begin with Psalm 8. We were in the Psalms last night too. This is one that we know very well. This is sort of my paraphrase, I guess. O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. You have set your glory above the heavens. From the lips of children and infants you have ordained praise, because of your enemies, to silence the foe and the avenger. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, who are we that you are mindful of us, or our children that you care for them? You made us a little lower than the heavenly beings and the angels, and crowned us with glory and honor. You made us ruler over the works of your hands. You put everything under our feet, all flocks and herds, and the beasts of the field, the birds of the air, and the fish of the sea, all that swim the paths of the seas. O Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Sometimes we translate that, how excellent is your name. Remember a little praise song based on that? Because I've always remembered this observation from Madeleine L'Engle. So I'm going to pick up from her toward the beginning of the book. She sets up about Jacob and what it was like for Jacob to be out there in the wilderness and set up a stone for a pillow, where of course he sees the angels going up and down the ladder. And she says, we may think it's strange to have a stone for a pillow. She says, until we remember that very few people on this planet go to bed at night on soft pillows. And so Jacob had a stone for a pillow. She says she's done it a few times if you're just resting for a while, but it'd be hard to do it all night. But she's talking about the stars. The stars are often referred to in Genesis. El Shaddai took Jacob's grandfather, Abraham, out into the desert night to show him the stars and to make incredible promises. How glorious those stars must have been all those centuries ago, when the planet was not circled by a corona of light from all our cities, by smog from our internal combustion engines. Jacob, lying on the ground, the stone under his head, would have seen the stars as we cannot see them today. Perhaps we have thrown up a smoke screen between ourselves and the angels. But Jacob would not have been blinded by the glory of the stars as part of the independence of the desert, the human being, the smallest insects, all parts of creation. If we look at the makeup of the word disaster, disaster, we see dis, which means separation, and aster, which means star. So disaster is separation from the stars. Such separation is disaster indeed. When we are separated from the stars, the sea, each other, we are in danger of being separated from God. Sometimes the very walls of our churches separate us from God and each other. In our various naves and sanctuaries, we are safely separated from those outside, from other denominations, other religions, separated from the poor, the ugly, the dying. I'm not advocating pulling down the walls of our churches, though during the activist 60s, I used to think it might be a good idea if we got rid of all churches which seat more than 200. But then I think of the huge cathedral, which is my second home in New York, and how its great stone arms welcome a multitude of different people, from the important and affluent to waifs and strays and the little lost ones of a great overcrowded city. We need to remember that the house of God is not limited to a building that we usually visit for only a few hours on Sunday. And she has mentioned earlier that, of course, Jacob, when he was blessed by God, called the place Bethel, the house of God. The house of God is not a safe place. It is a cross where time and eternity meet, and where we are, or should be, challenged to live more vulnerably, more interdependently, where, even with the light streaming in rainbow colors through the windows, we can listen to the stars. And then I wanted to share one of my favorite poems. We have a star theme this evening. And this is a poem by Robert Frost. You all may know it. It's called Choose Something Like a Star. O star, the fairest one in sight, we grant your loftiness the right to some obscurity of cloud. It will not do to say of night, since dark is what brings out your light. Some mystery becomes the proud, but to be wholly taciturn in your reserve is not allowed. Say something to us we can learn by heart, and when alone repeat. Say something, and it says, I burn. But say with what degree of heat? Talk Fahrenheit, talk centigrade. Use language we can comprehend. Tell us what elements you blend. It gives us strangely little aid, but does tell something in the end. And steadfast as Keats' eremite, not even stooping from its sphere, it asks a little of us here. It asks of us a certain height. So when at times the mob is swayed to carry praise or blame too far, we may choose something like a star to stay our minds on and be stayed. We are separated from the stars. I was thinking last week we're looking for the comet. I couldn't see it. I'm not sure it was because of the timing or the lights by the interstate where I live. We've got some meteor showers coming in these days, and not too many of us see those or can see the stars at all. While we were up at Green Lake, Philip took some late night walks just to see the stars. And I've always remembered that phrase, that definition of hers, that disaster is separation from the stars. When we are separated from who it is we were created to be, when we are separated from all of creation with whom we are intended to live interdependently, we risk being separated from God. And so as we consider the psalmist saying, when I consider your heavens, the moon and the stars which you've established, who are we? What is man that thou art mindful of them, in the King James? Who are we that you put us in this place, and that you crowned us with glory and honor and made us just a little lower than the angels? And we are called to stay in touch with the stars, to stay in touch with our best efforts, to set our minds on something like a star, as Frost said, so that we will not be swayed by all of the things that are happening down here. And there are so many things happening down here. And it is so easy for us to be swayed, as Paul told us, to be by every wind of doctrine, everything that happens. It's so easy to be swayed. And so we have for ourselves the stars, the creation, our connection with God, not only in all of that, but with one another, that we may set our minds on the things of God, that we are set our minds on the things that are true, whatever is worthy, whatever is beautiful, whatever is lovely, whatever has any merit, Paul says. We set our minds on those things so that we may indeed be stayed. That's a word we don't use very often. We may be steadfast. We may be faithful. We may be ready for all the winds that come our way, knowing that we are secured, that we are tethered to the stars. Pray that as you maybe go out this evening, I'm going to go out and mow the lawn. I may be doing it by the stars, that you will remember your place in this universe, that God has made you a little lower than the angels, crowned with glory and honor, and that we are called on to keep that connection. May God bless your evening. Good night.